Hello, wonderful people. Welcome back to Ask Sophie and happy Sunday, or probably Monday, but judging by when this video might be put up. But whatever it is, you're listening to Ask Sophie, the All About Girls series, where I would usually talk about character tropes that affect women. But today, I've decided to change things up a bit, mix things up. But today we'll be talking about guys actually, and whether or not guys are being oppressed now. So you're probably wondering, what the hell? How does this make any sense? Well, I was actually inspired by a conversation I had with a dear friend of mine where he claimed that men are actually now the ones being oppressed. Why did he say that, you might be wondering? Well, okay, it stems from a very long history of certain people being in power, and then in an attempt to be progressive, trying to get the people they've previously oppressed into the same positions of power. Now, we've seen this with a lot of different things: race, gender, sexuality, and you might be coming to the mind-blowing conclusion that I am in fact talking about affirmative action. So how exactly does affirmative action mean men are being oppressed? Okay, just to elaborate on the conversation I had with my friends, we were talking about scholarships because I'm a high school senior and that is important. I actually got a huge scholarship to my dream school, which is really cool, so I don't have to worry about scholarships anymore because I got a full ride. But the friend that I was talking to, he plans on going into engineering, and he was mentioning how when his sister had been applying, who's I think a couple years older than him, while she had been applying for engineering programs and for scholarships, she was able to find a bunch of scholarships for women who plan on going into engineering. And he was talking about how she was actually able to pay off her entire college experience, all 4 years of undergrad, with scholarships money, or I think actually 3 years. I think she might have graduated a year early, but she mentioned that she was able to pay off all her university fees with just the money she got from scholarships. But his experiences were different because he wasn't able to find as many scholarships, and the scholarships that were available to him were super competitive, so he hasn't been able to get as many scholarships as he would like. So you might be assuming I'm gonna obviously shut down his assumptions that men are being oppressed, but I want to actually examine this from an unbiased, as unbiased as possible point of view. So I have similar experiences, and I'm going into tech. I plan on majoring in computer science, so that's obviously a very male-dominated field. I think there is something like 4% of women are software engineers, or it's really bad, especially being a black woman in computer science. Yeah, okay. But I remember applying for this program for this largely known organization, and it would look great on my resume, which was a huge reason I decided to apply. But I wasn't necessarily expecting to get in because it was a national program, so everyone in the country that I live in, which is Canada, would have access to apply for it. Well, every high school student. But I then remember reading the eligibility, the criteria to be eligible, and it mentioned that you either had to be female or non-binary. And in that moment, I remember being like, oh, I might actually have a chance. And that was a weird moment for me because I try not to let my gender get in the way of the things I pursue or how I perceive myself, but that clearly was an indicator of how I viewed my place in the tech world. And I felt something else in that moment. I kind of felt sad because I have 2 younger brothers, and although they're probably not gonna go into tech because they've never shown any interest in it, no matter how much I've tried to encourage them, but I thought that my brothers might never be able to participate in this program. It is such a cool program. But anyway, I applied and I got in. But there's always that nagging feeling that if it wasn't a program that was strictly for women and non-binary people, I wouldn't have gotten in. And I think a huge problem with the people who sort of are against affirmative action, and like most of the time the conversation about affirmative action is related to race, which that's an entirely different thing that I could just rant on for ages. But a lot of the people who are against affirmative action always bring up something called merit. I've had this conversation with so many people you could not even imagine. But merit, that's such an interesting term because I personally don't think merit exists. There's so many privileges that so many people have due to things that they have no control over, and also a lot of disadvantages that a lot of people have due to things they have no control over, that merit just isn't possible because we're not all equal. There's no way to quantify our abilities so like basic, in such a basic sense, you know? But yeah, okay, so at the end of the day, I think affirmative action, not affirmative action, I think people who argue against affirmative action actually create this toxic system where people who work really hard to achieve things, who happen to be part of a minority, whether they're female, they're black, they're of a certain sexual orientation or gender identity, it sort of takes away the accomplishments that they're able to accomplish. I remember reading this post on Reddit, and it was something, because I was trying to find internships in high school because jobs and, you know, your future. But I remember coming across this post, and the guy was asking, how do you get internships as a first year student in university, because they're really competitive and they're really hard to get, you know? And this guy was like, oh, be a chick in computer science. That really pissed me off because it just devalues the hard work that actual women put into it. And like, if we're assuming that women have it easier because of their gender, it makes it easy to dismiss women who work hard. And oh my gosh, okay, I just feel like people who are against affirmative action don't actually understand what it means. And by just devaluing people's accomplishments and throwing it to the fact that they're of a minority background, just makes it seem that they're all the hard work they put into it was meaningless, and they never would have achieved those things if it weren't for the fact that they're, again, a woman, black, or any racial minority, person who's part of the LGBTQ community or anything like that. And I've actually experienced this myself. I remember I mentioned that I got a full ride to my dream school. And I remember, because I had to apply for the scholarship, and it was very competitive because, again, it was a national scholarship. So everyone who was in high school was eligible to apply in Canada. And I was one of the few people who were chosen as finalists. There are 20 people chosen as finalists. And I remember getting the letter, well, it was an email, but I remember getting it and reading it and just being like, oh my gosh, wow. But then the first thing that came to my mind was, holy crap, I could not believe it. Actually, it wasn't crap. I said, I struggle with swearing. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but it was holy shit. But yeah, and my second thought was oh, did I only get this because I was black? And I don't, if you're not part of a minority group or a marginalized minority group, you might be thinking, well, that's a stupid thought. But honestly, because I remember I run a club at my school, and we had recently argued affirmative action and whether or not that's inherently racist or sexist. And we talked about equity versus equality and all that good stuff. And I remember genuinely believing that I probably wouldn't have gotten as far as I did into the scholarship process if I wasn't of Black descent or African descent. I am African. I'm not of African descent. I don't know what I'm saying. But basically, I feel like now I'll never be able to fully appreciate the things that I accomplished, because there'll always be that nagging at the back of my head that I'm only at this position because of my race and because people are trying to be more progressive and have more diversity, and I'm basically just like a mannequin, or like sort of like a symbol of progression in a company or something, or like, it makes me very annoyed. And then I had to really think about the application process. When this is related to the scholarship story I was telling, but I had to think about the process, and I realized that I never once stated my race in my application. They never asked me, so there's no way for them to know that I was actually Black or a woman. And they also don't I found out later that they actually take off your name. So if anyone here is listening who like struggles with imposter syndrome when it comes to their accomplishments, because you think it's only because of your race or your gender or your sexual orientation that you got into a certain position, maybe it is, but most likely it isn't, because the fact of the matter is most people don't give a crap about progression, and most people are going to discriminate against you for being of a certain minority group. And those people far outnumber the people who don't, and the people who actually seek to be more diverse. So yeah, the odds are likely against you, and if you got to that position, you should be very proud of yourself and kind of just flip off the people who will always try to demean you and your accomplishments. So yeah, okay, I realized that this was kind of a different topic to talk about. For one, we're not examining character tropes, and another thing was more about my personal experiences, but I just had to say something about this because it's always been bothering me. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. If you disagree with me, I would love to know why. I genuinely love talking about this, like it's actually weird, but yeah. Okay, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and also comment. See you guys in the next video. Bye.